Yes, sir, yes, sir. It's your boy Spitty Will from the Mill, and I just jumped off the porch with Dirty Glove Bastard.
Yes, sir, yes, sir. We right back at it, y'all. We got my boy and a DGB family member, DGB's own Spitty Will off the porch with us today.
Yes, sir. We right back at it, man. It feel good to be on the porch, you know what I mean? It's weird being on this side of it, though, you know what I mean? So used to being behind the scenes from every aspect of it, so, you know.
Yeah, it's finally, like you finally been popping out, you know, recently, kind of, you know, showing your face a little more, too.
Yeah, nah, man. It's just time, you know what I mean? It's time for the documentarians to be documented, you know what I mean? And for us to be able to tell our stories, because I feel like within this culture and the things that we've been doing behind the scenes, you know, there's so many stories that come from us and so much inspiration that we can even give with our stories, you know, to other cats that's trying to do, you know, what we're doing. You know?
Nah, absolutely, man. And you're such a vet in this, so we got a lot to discuss, man. You know, anyone that's ever watched your interviews, you know, you make it known. You're from Milwaukee.
Yes, sir.
From the Mill.
Oh, yeah, the Mill, all day. 22nd and Townsend. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what I rep. You know, my family's, you know, originally from Hernando, Mississippi, then went to, you know, Memphis, Tennessee. And my mom's, you know, migrated from Memphis and, you know, went to Milwaukee, had me and my brother. And, you know, we grew up, you know, in Milwaukee, where people, you know, they always ask, like, man, is black folks in Milwaukee? But, you know, folks would be so surprised to know that Milwaukee's actually one of the top, it's considered like one of the top segregated cities, you know, in the US, and also is ranked as one of the top, I think, one, maybe two cities as worst cities for a black man to, you know, grow up in. Like, we have like a super high incarceration rate for black men. So, but yeah, man, I'm from the Mill and I love my city. You know, it's so rich, you know, in culture, and I'm so happy that even right now, on the music tip, you know, the city's finally getting some shine, you know, too, so.
No, absolutely, man.
Yeah.
So, you know, give us your experience growing up in Milwaukee. What was that like for you, Spitty?
Man, growing up in the Mill, I mean, it was dope. I mean, I had a dope childhood, you know what I mean? Probably saw too much too early, you know, like that whole, from Boys in the Hood, hey man, y'all wanna see a dead body? Like, that was real life, you know what I'm saying? Like, we, for real, would be, you know, hooping in the alley or riding our bikes or whatever, and you would come across a dead body, or you would, you know what I'm saying, be seeing different things that you probably just shouldn't be seeing, you know, at such an early age. But my city definitely adapted me for, I feel like, the world, because, you know, you also, like, you gotta have a lot of, you got to know something. Like, you got to have some game, you know, coming up in Milwaukee, because, like, people will easily try to take advantage of you or try to, you know, pull a fast one on you. So even as a kid, it's like, yo, you know, people trying to send you off to do something. Hey, go take this package over here. Hey, you know, you got to be savvy and not just, you know, fall into anything. So I feel like, you know, when you come from Milwaukee, you know, they say, like, you come from, if you make it in Milwaukee, you can make it anywhere. And that's real, because, you know, the city, like, is, you know, it's treacherous, you know what I mean? But then at the same time, like I said, there's like a lot of like dope, rich black culture in the city as well. Like, something that I always would tell people is that, like, Juneteenth, like, I grew up celebrating Juneteenth and that being like a big deal, as to where I feel like in the last couple of years, now it's become kind of like trendy, or kind of, you know what I mean? Like, now I believe they even just marked it like as a national holiday.
Yeah, it's a federal holiday now.
Yeah, so, but that's just been something that, you know, like the Black Panthers is like huge in Milwaukee and have a huge, you know, presence there in the city. So, you know, Milwaukee is just, you know, overall, I mean, you know, you got to stay dangerous, you know what I mean? But at the same time, like, there are parts of the city that are beautiful if you can get over to like the lakefront area and, things like that. And Milwaukee also has Summerfest, which is like a big music festival. And so even like growing up, I was, seeing music festivals and things that are super popular now. But like, that's a long running festival that's like been in the city for years too, so.
Yeah. So the $1 million question, when did you jump off the porch? How old were you?
Ooh, man, when did I jump off the porch, man? It's crazy. I mean, my mom's was super strict, so, I was trying to jump off the porch early because my partners was able to pretty much, do, like move around how they wanted to and how I wish I could, you know what I mean? Like it was super strict. Like I lived on the second house from the corner. I could ride my bike to the corner and back in front of the house. Like that was, how strict it was. But I would, seriously though, and again, like I think, and I think too, like growing up in the 90s, because I won't just say growing up in Milwaukee, because I think this like is like pertains to a lot of cities. I think growing up in the 90s, a lot of us were latchkey kids. So a lot of us were, you walked to school, you came home, mama was at work, you had a key, you better have your butt in the house until I come home. So, I mean, honestly, like I was doing that, in elementary school. So I probably jumped off the porch like around 11, 12 years old when I was walking, just having to walk home by myself and let myself in. And some days I didn't just go in the house. Some days I, moving around and seeing what was happening, you know what I mean? And like I said, seeing shit that I shouldn't have been seeing, you know what I mean? So.
And you were playing football in school too, right?
Yep. I played football. I went to Milwaukee Tech High School, played football, middle linebacker. So I was an all-state honorable mention, so all conference, and defensive player of the year. So.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Did you get scholarships? Like, did you get offers and all that?
So I got like some offers from schools like UW-Whitewater, Tennessee State. And I went on like a couple of visits to some schools, but like nothing too crazy, you know what I'm saying? So then I went to the University of Minnesota. I found out that Minnesota had a program where you could go to school there and pay in-state tuition. They had like a reciprocity program. So I was like, all right, like I can get away from home, but then I can pay in-state tuition. Like, all right, I'm gonna go here, you know what I'm saying? And there was this dude named Tim Ward, God rest his soul. He went to Bayview, and he was like one of the top players that year. So me and him like took our ACT around the same time, all that, and went up there to University of Minnesota at the same time or whatever. He went on to play, and like his first season, he had a pretty good season or whatever, but then his life was taken away from whatever. But yeah, so went up there, tried to walk on to the football team, and I did like a day and a half of the practices, and was like, nah, like this ain't, nah, this a whole nother level. Like
that's Big Ten school, right?
Yeah, Big Ten. So that was like around the years like Marion Barber was there,
okay.
and like Lawrence Maroney, you know what I'm saying, all them cats. So, but yeah, so went to school up there, and so I quickly transitioned from trying to play football to then I linked up with some cats, and we started throwing parties, and I started learning how to DJ. That was like something that I really wanted to get into. I always wanted to be a DJ. And then also to even speak on like why I even went to college, man. Like, I was a huge fan of Russell Simmons, and I always said when I was, younger, like I wanted to work at Def Jam, and I wanted to even, create my own Def Jam. And so I saw that the way that he was able to create his empire was that he went to college. So I was like, you know what? Like the best way for me to, get out of this environment that I'm in and to get to the dream I want to get to, man, I got to go to college and, link up with some cats and, do it that way. So that's like really what even drove me to going to college, was because I saw Russell Simmons did that. And that was the only way that I knew feasible of how to get out of the hood, how to get out of the war zone that I was in, you know what I'm saying?
And what were you majoring?
So I started out majoring in computer science, but then that came to a quick halt, and I switched it to, I did applied economics and marketing.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So you're up there DJing, throwing parties. Where do you guys go from there, like after you graduate then?
So basically, while I was in school DJing and doing all that, I got on this radio station, KFAI, had a radio show up there called The Session. Me and this dude, DJ Special Dark, shout out to him. And I was like in the Minneapolis scene. Minneapolis had and currently has a really thriving hip hop scene. So I really dove into that scene heavily. And then I found my love for writing as well. And so I ended up meeting these guys that were based in New York. This guy named Problems and this other dude, KB Tyndale. They had this website called wildout.com. And they were interviewing like all these different artists. And so I was already doing that like on the radio station, but I found that like, because another dream of mine was always to write for The Source magazine. So I started writing for like this website, and then this is like back even before the blog era. Mm-hmm. And so I found this other website called gangstaism.com. They were based in Germany, and it was a Southern hip hop site. So I'm writing for this New York website, and this is back in the days where message boards were like popular. Allhiphop.com message board, Underground Hip Hop, Davey D had his website, the Underground Hip Hop Layer, like all of these different sites were popular. This is even before Nah Right, Two Dope Boys, all of that. Like they weren't even called blogs, they were still websites. And so at this time, I'm writing for this Southern hip hop site that's based in Germany. And then I'm writing for this site Wild Out, which is based in New York. So I'm interviewing like New York type artists, and different people like in that realm. But then for this other site, I'm interviewing, K Reno and Klondike Cat, like cats from Dallas, and so like PSK 13 and artists like that. So I'm doing that, and I'm really like finding my niche like with the writing world. And we were throwing a party in Minneapolis, and one of my partners, my boy Newman, his partner Q, came into town, and they were showing him some of the writing that I was doing. And he was like, man, I got a partner that's in LA that writes for The Source, but he's from Milwaukee. And he's got a site called contrabanded.com. And so then he connected me to his guy Biko, who's from the mill but was living in LA. And I started writing for Contrabanded and became like a huge contributor to that website, and started running that site and being their Midwest correspondent. And so then basically they were based in LA. So then I saved my money, and on my breaks, like on spring break, I would go out to LA and move around with these guys and go and like see LA. And I remember my first trip to LA, as soon as I landed, they picked me up. They took me to Leimert Park to the liquor bank, which like if you've seen Menace to Society or even like Baby Boy, like the liquor bank was big, like in these movies or whatever. So they take me to the liquor bank. Lisa Ray is like the sponsor for Hennessy or whatever, and they hooked me up with some bottles of Hennessy. Like I'm just getting fresh off the plane, meet Lisa Ray. Then after that, we end up going over to this house where Snoop was shooting Snoop Fizzle, Doggy Fizzle, Televizzle or whatever on MTV. And I'm like with Snoop and J.R. Ryder and the Dog Pound and all that. And I'm like, damn, like as soon as I got off the plane, I'm just seeing like all of these, different artists and all of these people that I like grew up, like huge fans of. And so, yeah, like, so basically from graduating in Minnesota, I ended up leaving and moving to LA. Like I just from going out there and visiting so much and connecting dots out there, I just decided to move out there. And so I graduated, and then as soon as I graduated, I moved out to LA and just couch surfed.
Oh, shit.
You know, man.
And around this time is when you start actually writing for The Source then too?
Yeah, so during this time, I was I started getting assignments. Even in Minnesota, I was getting some assignments. Man, I got a crazy story about Tech Nine, and I've never met him to this day since this time. But back when I was in Minnesota, I got an assignment to cover Tech Nine doing a show, and I remember going to his hotel, and back then we ain't had Ubers, man. You had to like get in cabs and stuff like that. So I got in the cab, went over to his hotel, linked with them. And then, man, they was just moving so fast. And I think like just me not being savvy, not knowing really how to move with rappers back then. I'm just a college kid. So I somehow get left going to the club. I catch another cab, go to the club. Man, my money, I'm looking at my money that's just going down, like, cause I'm a broke college kid, you know what I mean? I get to the club, I can't get in. My boy Mark Webster, his pops, was the security for the Quest nightclub back then. So I recognized him when a name dropped. He helped me get in the club. Man, I get in the club and Tech Nine and them are kicking in the VIP. Everything's cool. So I'm vibing with them or whatever. They go and do the show. Afterwards, they ended up leaving me again. So like I never get a chance to get my interview like for the story I'm supposed to do. So then, man, the next day they ended up leaving or whatever. Like I tried to go back to their hotel, meet with them, but man, they had some, they was doing their thing by then and wasn't trying to hear about doing no interview. So man, the next day, my guy from The Source, who I was interning for, Ryan, he called me and he like, man, they said you was at the club kicking it, drinking and getting drunk, smoking, all that, you know what I'm saying? Like, and wasn't on your business. And man, I almost got fired like from The Source that day. Like trying to chase Tech Nine around the city, damn near ran my account negative, you know what I'm saying? So Tech Nine, I need you to come sit on the porch, cause you know what I mean, you almost got me fired like back in the day, you know what I mean? But nah, But yeah, so I started writing for The Source then, got to LA, started doing more stories. Like one of the dopest stories I was able to do was on Cat Williams, right after he did the Money Mike role. And I did an interview with him. It was a phone interview, and I remember I was dating this girl in Compton and pulled up to her house, left my keys in the car, had to do the interview with him, like worried about my car or whatever. And he telling me like, boy, you over off Imperial, like don't worry, your car be stripped by the morning. Like, and by the morning the car was definitely broke into, stole all my CDs, everything was crazy. Yeah. But nah, so I wrote on Cat Williams, and then I was able to go to Houston because I would always talk about how Scarface is my favorite rapper. Scarface is one of my favorite rappers, and my boy Ryan was like, all right, man, like you always talking about Scarface, now here's the time. Like they had the Houston, Great Day in Houston cover, and we went down there to J. Prince Ranch, and I was able to write the Chameleonaire portion of the cover story, which was, you know what I'm saying, like it's
legendary, man.
I mean, I was in heaven. Like it was like, okay, I moved to LA, like I took a chance, you know what I'm saying? Like I knew a few people out there, but I really like just took a chance, and I moved out there, I couch surfed, I got some opportunities, and for me to be able to go out there, and I mean, these are all my favorite rappers, like Slim Thug, Mike Jones, Magno, man, Slim Thug, I mean, ESG was there, like, I mean, some of everybody. I mean, Pimp C had just got out of jail. I'll tell you the illest thing too, man. Like when I first moved to LA, I got two internships. I got an internship at Jordan Brand, where I was working in the PR department, and I had to help distribute Jordans to like the shows on BET, or like since it was All-Star Weekend, I had to help distribute the Jordan 23s that were coming out that year to everybody that was going to be at the All-Star Weekend and all that. So I'm at Jordan Brand. I'm at the PR firm I'm working for, setting up to send Pimp C his Jordans to be for him to wear on the cover. And then I remember like getting there at the cover shoot and him stepping out the car, you know what I'm saying, with the Jordans on his feet and all that. I'm like, damn, like my life is crazy. Like I just sent him these shoes that he's wearing, and then I'm here as a part of writing this cover story. Like, is, you know what I mean? Like, you couldn't write it in a movie, you know what I mean?
No, that's super dope right
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
And how do you end up getting the job at Geffen?
So I got the job at Geffen. I was, so being on the writer side, I was always dealing with different publicists and different like reps at the labels and all that. I remember my guy, Jay Castile, who runs Baller Status. He had hit me and was like, hey man, the people at Interscope, they talking about this job. I used to always talk about how I wanted to like work at the labels and work like in PR, but not really do PR, because I knew that like the internet websites was the future. And so I didn't want to work and do magazines or newspapers. I was like, I want to work and like work with all these websites that's like bubbling and all that. And so I would always talk about that. So he called me and was like, man, Interscope has a position and they offering it to me, but like I think you would really like be dope in this position. I think you would kill in this. And so then he ended up introducing me to the people for the job, and it was dope, man. I remember like literally my first day. So I went in, Geffen was just starting like a new media department. Ron Fair, who had produced like a bunch of stuff for Keisha Cole and the Pussycat Dolls and Mary J. Blige and all that, he was starting like his own division at Geffen. He already had A&M, but he was gonna be running Geffen. So yeah, I remember meeting him and he was super cool. But then like in my interview, as soon as I was in the interview, Jeff Dixon from DTP ends up like storming into the meeting while I'm in my interview, and it's because Phil Mob, who was signed to Geffen at the time, they were dealing with like some kind of New York beef or something that I think like Smoke might have like made some comments like joking about New York people or something like that. So he walked in and was like, yo, like they posting all this stuff on All Hip Hop about Phil Mob and, you know, talking bad, you know, about them, like we need to be able to defend ourselves or whatever. And so I was like, well, I know the people at All Hip Hop, like I can call them. And Jeff was like, who is this dude? And it was like, yeah, this Jacory, he coming in for, you know, for an interview. And he like, man, you know the people at All Hip Hop? And I'm like, yeah, I can call them right now. And so I made the call like right then and there and set up for Phil Mob to be able to do like a press conference, you know, on All Hip Hop, and like for them to defend themselves and all that. And that got me the job. Oh, you know, they was like, shit, Jeff was like, hire him now, you know what I mean? And I became Jeff Dixon, like I became his guy. Like he would always come to me with different ideas, always challenge me. Like he was somebody who was like really instrumental to me like early in my career.
Yeah. This is like the early days of digital marketing and all that too, right?
Yeah, for sure. This is the super early days. I mean,
like YouTube's only been out for a couple years at this time. Right?
YouTube, honestly, YouTube had just come out that same year. Okay. It was 2006. And so YouTube had just come out. So that was the new phenomenon. And I remember even when telling them, you know, when I was pitching myself for the job, I was telling them how important content was. You know, I came from the Smack DVD era, and, you know, I love watching, you know, like all of that. So I'm like, man, people want to see the in the life, the behind the scenes, the, you know, what we can't see on like MTV Cribs or whatever, you know what I mean? So I'm like, man, people want to see that. So I convinced them. I told them that I knew how to use a camera and all that, got them to buy me a camera. And so I'm basically following around Common, Keisha Cole, Jibbs, Snoop. I'm just following everybody with a camera, just getting footage and shooting these little episodes, and you know what I'm saying, turning them into like little episodes and putting stuff out. And then at this time, the major like digital platforms was like AOL and Yahoo and you know all of that. So they were doing like their different live content pieces and all that. So I would then work with those companies and then come up with different creative pieces like for our artists and all that. So, you know, I didn't know that I was producing, you know, back then. I didn't know like what I was actually doing on that end, you know, even to just fast forward, bring it to, you know, where we're at now and just, you know, where we're at with developing content and all that. But yeah.
What was it like working around Snoop at that time?
Man, it was dope. It was super dope. And you know, I'm happy. So my one of my mentors, Ryan Ford, one of the first things that he instilled in me when I first ever came out to LA, and I remember him taking me to go work with Snoop when he was writing for The Source at the time. He told me, he said, look, man, when you're around these artists, you know, they're gonna offer for you to smoke, drink, you know, whatever, party with them. And he was like, man, we here for work. We here to handle business. We here for another cause. So make sure that you're ready to handle business and, you know, that you're on point. So, you know, don't accept any weed, don't accept anything. So anyway, so I always did that and always moved in that way. But then with working with him, it was like a movie. It was dream come true, you know. The only thing I didn't get to do with him while working with him was smoke a blunt with him. But the dope thing about it is that after the fact, years later, they had hired me to like shoot some content for him for his cannabis platform, Mary Jane, and they were down here at the BET Hip Hop Awards. And so afterwards, we were in his trailer, and everybody was smoking, and we was passing blunts around. And I told him, I was like, man, can I tell you, bro, from when I met you when I was interning to when I worked with you when I was at Geffen, like I've always wanted to smoke a blunt with you, man, and they ain't never been able to because I've always wanted to keep it professional. And he was like, well, shit, that was your bad, you know, like, you know what I'm saying? But nah, working with Snoop was really dope. Even back then, these were in the early years of him developing the Snoop Youth Football League.
Okay.
So seeing him as the star that he was, but then seeing him have this passion in these kids and in football the way that he did and how he devoted so much time to that was really dope. And that was something that I was like really excited to be able to even work with him on with early on, like setting up different vlog series for, you know, the football league and, you know, things like that. So, but Snoop was super cool to work with, man. I mean, it was like just hanging out like with your cousin or something, just hanging out. I mean, for real, just he was, and he loved music so much, and like not just rap, but like soul music and jazz and like everything. So, you know, being around him just in his dressing room and how he vibe, it was just, you know, it was really dope and a dope experience. And you understood too, like how hard he worked, like why he's so successful, like how he is, because he worked hard, you know, it's crazy.
Then you leave Geffen and go to Warner, right?
Yep. I left Geffen. I got my welcome to the music industry moment. I mean, I had a few of those, but truly that, you know, because I felt like I was doing such a great job there. And, you know, one thing that I learned early when I first even got the job at the label was, I remember like a week or 2 weeks in, like they did layoffs and probably laid off like 20, 30 people, you know, and that was scary. I was like, damn, like into my first job and seeing that. And I remember somebody telling me like, yo, get used to it, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, and so like for me to see that as being like kind of a normal rotation of like people getting let go, people getting brought in, I was sort of prepared for it, but then at the same time, I wasn't. So I was pretty devastated when I got laid off. And then Billboard wrote a story on me back then, for getting laid off. And I took it as something bad because me being embarrassed by it, I looked at it like, damn, like they writing a story on me for getting fired? Like, damn.
Not all the good shit you did.
Right, not all the good shit, like for me getting fired. And so I remember like just being so messed up about that. But when I think about it, I should have looked at that as a good thing because they were putting me in such a high vein, and such a high.
It was worth mentioning.
Right, that it was worth mentioning. So, but yeah, so I got laid off from Geffen, and then I went to Warner Brothers. Went to Warner Brothers, and that was like a really quick stint. They were more of a rock label. They didn't have too much hip hop over there, but I did get to work with E40, which was super dope. Really dope experience, and got to go to the Bay with him and hang out with him. And then I understood why they wear North Faces in the Bay, because it's so cold there, and I never understood that, 'cause like I said, I was new to Cali, you know what I mean? But yeah, so I was at Warner for like a year. That was a really quick stint. And then from Warner, I left there and I went to Def Jam. I moved to New York, decided to make a huge decision, which I didn't want to do at the time because I loved LA so much, but I decided to make that move, go to New York, and it was the best decision I think that I've probably, one of the best decisions I've made.
What was your role at Def Jam?
So at Def Jam, I was digital marketing director. Okay. So I was basically running the digital marketing for all the urban projects on the Def Jam side, myself and JD Anderson. We split the roster down, and we ran like all the marketing for the projects, everything like on the digital front. And at this time, now we're prime time blog era. Like we in it, all the way. All of the meetings that I was having early in my career where we be getting ignored and, like them not really wanting to follow like our marketing plans. Now we're the central part of the meetings. Now, everything's in full on stride with digital at this time.
And you got to work with Kanye, Jeezy, Big Sean, and all them?
Yeah, man. Def Jam was an amazing experience. And the crazy thing about it, too, before we even talk about the artists that I got to work with, was that it was a dream of mine. Like, it was something that when I was in my neighborhood, when I was younger growing up, I always said, like, I'm going to write for the Source magazine, and I'm going to work at Def Jam. And that was, like, what I used to always say. And so then, to walk in those doors, those legendary doors, and to be able to work with so many artists. And Def Jam is really, is really like a fraternity. You know what I mean? It's like, if you're like the select, if you're like the who's who to have been able to have worked at Def Jam, like you kind of hold that in high regard. That's like somebody I think that like go to Howard or something like that. Like you just, you just hold that like in a high regard. But yeah, man, I was able to work with Kanye, Jeezy, Play a Circle. So I, worked with Titty Boy early and Dollar, shout out to them, and was reunited with Jeff Dixon again and all of their team. So, which was really dope. But yeah, man, Def Jam was an amazing experience, and like, I really like feel like when I got to Def Jam, like the other labels, like I was like still kind of trying to figure it out, and still, when I got to Def Jam, like I knew who I was. I kind of had an identity, and that I really flourished, while I was there. Even with like artists like Sahai, it was dope because being in the position of, being an exec at the label, but then being tapped in to the culture so much to know, a lot of these different artists that are coming up. And for me, I was always dubbed as like the Southern hip hop guy at the labels or whatever. So they would more connect me to, okay, we got Rick Ross and Triple C's. We need you to build this up. Okay, we got Player Circle. We want you to build this up. Okay, we got Big Sean, this kid from Detroit. Okay, want you to, work and build this up, And so I just like kind of built my identity with that and took to that and, really just, was able to flourish there.
Yeah. And around this time is when you joined DGB too, man.
Yeah, yep. So my partner Ronnie, man, shout out to Ronnie. Ronnie, who I met doing digital marketing, him and my boy Hobbs. These were guys who were from the Midwest. Ronnie from Chicago, Hobbs from Detroit, but we were all from the Midwest, and I had moved out to LA pursuing my dreams. They had moved out to New York pursuing their dreams, and they were like my intro into Brooklyn when I would, come out to New York and vibe in Brooklyn and all that. And so anyway, and then we all figured out that we were coffee brothers, you know what I'm saying? Like we all drink brews, listen to Devin the Dude, vibe out. And so, anyway, one day Ronnie, we were on the rooftop drinking some beers, and Ronnie was like, man, my cousin got this site, and it's all Southern hip hop based, and I think that you will rock with it, man. Like, I want to connect y'all. I think you will really rock with it. And so he showed me the site, and the first thing that I saw on there was a blog about how to cook crack. And I was like, all right, like this dude live, like this crazy. And it took me back to, it reminded me of when I was writing for that site, wildout.com. So it reminded me of Problems and all them cats, like just how they had that site. So it was just crazy. But then the other post that I saw that really brought me in was that he had a post about Scarface. And it was all his favorite Scarface songs that were on motion picture soundtracks. So it was not songs you find on any album. And I'm like, all right, like this dude, a hip hop nerd like me. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, I can rock with this. So, so then, I connected with Zip, and immediately like just started, bringing my value, and doing, what I do as being a creative and, visionary and, all of that. So I also remember, bro, this is funny. I remember connecting with Zip and then going to Dallas and meeting him in person. And he picked me up, and I remember like he had like 2 beers in the console, blunt roll. Like he was just so live. And I just was like, yo, is this dude a real person? You know what I'm saying? Because like you wouldn't believe Zip or how he is. Like when he's talking to you on the phone and you hear how off the wall he is, you just wouldn't believe it unless you see it for real. You know what I mean? But I remember meeting him in person and us just talking about hip hop, like me being scared for my life most of the time. You know what I'm saying? We was together. Not for real, but but Zip will have your ass out there though. You know what I mean?
He's really outside.
Yo, he really outside. You know what I mean? But we just had the same vision. You know what I mean? Like for like wanting to see Southern hip hop, Midwest hip hop being showcased, out there. Because also me working at the labels and working in that marketing position where I'm looking for sites, looking for platforms that would focus on that type of music, I couldn't find them. Most of the platforms mainly posted East Coast and West Coast music. So any of the Southern artists or any of the music that wasn't accepted back then just wasn't getting any placement. So him having this platform, to me, it was like, music to my ear. So I immediately, wanted to get down and wanted to be a part of it. And then when I met you and I met Dre, and and then saw like the structure and how you guys were already rolling, and everybody being in different places. Him being from Detroit, but then based in Dallas. Dre being in Baton Rouge, you being in Tampa at the time, but from Miami. And I'm like, all right, I'm from Milwaukee. Grew up back and forth between Milwaukee and Memphis. Have the same love for music you guys have. But then now I'm in a position where, I'm a vessel. I'm able to, now I'm in these buildings and I'm in these places that all of us have been, trying to get to or want to get to. So now I can utilize that, and you know what I mean? Back and forth, because even at the labels, when they saw how I knew about different artists, that were coming out and, always just ahead of the game. I mean, that was, something that was, that put me, what I'm saying, in the forefront,
yeah.
You know what I mean? And something crazy too on that tip, bro, with finding these new artists and everything. So when I worked at Geffen, I was working with Jibbs, and we worked Dia Chain Hang Low and had him as the second artist to have a platinum ringtone and a platinum single. Rick Ross with Hustlin' was the first artist. But I remember my intern Carter had found this artist on YouTube who had these rubber band chains on and was dancing and all that. And he found this artist named Soulja Boy on MySpace. And he found him and he showed him to me. And from there, I hit up Jibbs and I showed Jibbs his artist. I hit him and his manager, Mark. Showed them, and they were like, man, can you get a hold of him? So I went on to MySpace. I saw that Miami Mike info was on there. Reached out to Miami Mike, hollered at him, told him who I was. We connected the dots. Jibbs, who had, just gotten his deal, bought a new house, all that, was just on some real fly shit. He ended up flying Soulja Boy to St. Louis, and they did a bunch of videos together and all that, did some music together, all that. So Jibbs was gonna sign Soulja Boy to his label, but then the people at Interscope, because Jibbs was on Geffen, the people on the Interscope side caught wind of that and ended up signing Soulja Boy and
cut Jibbs out of
the situation. But we had discovered Soulja Boy back then. Jeez. And yeah.
Now that's wild right there.
Yeah, man.
So after Def Jam, you end up starting Supreme Marketing, your own marketing.
Yep. So I saw a consistent pattern, with working at these labels, getting laid off. It was every 2 years, every 4 years, you know what I mean? I remember even doing one of my OG's resumes, and I saw how there was just a pattern. He just had so many labels that he had, worked at. And I remember saying man, that's not gonna be me. I'm not gonna play, I'm not gonna jump around, to all these different companies and just keep doing that. I got to figure out how to take my destiny into my own hands. I got to, figure that out. So, so at the time, I created Supreme. So Supreme Marketing was always a thought. It was always something that was, in my head. And I would always get approached about hey, can you do, stuff outside of here? And can you, you know what I mean? So then, eventually I created Supreme Marketing, and I got laid off from Def Jam, which was a situation where, again, I didn't think that I would get laid off. No, but nobody think they're gonna get laid off when they get laid off. So I think that's usually the thing. But at the time, I mean, look, I had just I had set up a deal between Universal Music Group and Ustream for Kanye's My Dark Twisted Fantasy. When he unveiled the album cover, which was probably his first time breaking the internet, we did a live stream with Ustream. Shout out my boy Mozzie. And we had him do the live stream. He unveiled the cover, broke the internet. Back then, we had, I had worked with Big Sean building up, from his first mixtape, to his first album, the Finally Famous album. I mean, we had, been working on content and all that and developed the Weekend Recap, I was working with just all of these artists working with Rick Ross, just had done the marketing on Teflon Don, just had done the marketing on Ludacris Battle of the Sexes. So I'm thinking like, man, I'm safe, I'm good. Like I'm working like all the most important projects in here, and that's what other cats is telling me too. So I'm like, I'm good. Man, the next day I was in the conference room. Next day I was in my office, got that call, and on the call ID it said conference room. Man, I knew what time it was. So yeah, I got laid off, and I started Supreme Marketing, and it was like one of those things where I didn't even take any time. Like I didn't have no vacation. I didn't take no time to sit back and reflect on what happened. It was like the next day, the phone was ringing and things was in motion. And so I started the marketing agency the next day, basically, and started rolling.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
And you got to work with Future and Lucci, among so many other artists.
Yeah,
too.
man. So I got to give praise where praise is due. Like one of the first clients that I had gotten, and what really got Supreme Marketing started was Erica Bowen was working with Jeezy. She was managing Jeezy at the time, and I was doing the marketing for them and was on the road with them, and me and Carbon 15 that got real close, and I had gotten really tight, like, you know, with all the CTE artists and everything, and Slick Pulla, and you know what I'm saying, all of them, Put On Tone, like we was all rocking, you know what I mean? And so then when I got laid off, everybody was like, yo, like where's Spitty at? So Erica ended up bringing me into 8732, and with that, she brought me in to do marketing at 8732, Jesus Clothing Line. And from there, I just started getting creative and, you know, created 8732 Films. And basically, you know, with us having DGB and what we were doing in the space of Southern rap and street rap and, you know, all of that, it fit in perfectly with what, you know, Jeezy was doing with 87. And with them trying to build up and show that they was connected to like who was next, you know, and all that. So yeah, we created 8732 Films. And then from there, connected with artists like Starlito, Don Tripp, who else? Drummer Boy.
That did all the freestyles. I forget his name.
Oh, Al Poco Don.
That's it.
Yeah. Like that was dope. You know what I'm saying? Like that was something where saw bro on World Star beating on the porch. You know what I'm saying? And rapping and killing it. And I remember my guy Radu. He ended up getting his number. And we ended up connecting with him, sent him a bunch of 8732 gear. He didn't believe, you know, like what it was, you know, at first. I remember like he wouldn't, you know, accept the calls in the beginning and all that. But then he, we ended up going to South Carolina and went and shot a couple of visuals for him, you know what I'm saying? And like, and actually, I think these were the first full music videos where the audio is from somebody, you know what I'm saying, like beating or beatboxing and you know what I'm saying, like doing that. So yeah, man, like I got in my bag, like directing music videos and, you know, all these different visuals back then within 87. Then from that, since I was known for working at the labels and doing these rollouts, I continued, you know, working with artists. And so I worked with Akon, did the marketing for Con Live and, you know, all those artists that were on that label back then. Then also shout out to Ray Daniels, who Ray was somebody who early on, like when I first got into the labels, even at Geffen, I met Ray. And he was somebody like, you know, it's like when you get in these labels and like you working in these buildings and like you meet, like you see some real ones, you meet like a couple of real ones, like it's like, okay, like, you know what I'm saying, like me and Ray connected early on, like in 3 6 Mafia and Play a Fly, you know what I mean? But nah, man, Ray connected me with Chubby Baby, and Chubby was like co-managing Future at the time and was working really close with Future. And so Ray told Chubby, like, yo, man, this Spitty, like, man, he the future, like, with digital and where it's going and all that. Like, you should bring him in. Chubby brought me in, you know, to work with them. And the funny thing about it is that, so at the time, Orlando was managing Future at the time as well. He was like the official, you know, manager or whatever. And so Orlando was managing Future, and I remember they was telling Orlando, yeah, man, we got this kid Spitty who's gonna work with us and do this digital, like he's dope. And Orlando was like, man, who the hell is Spitty, man? Who the hell? Like, nah, man, like, nah, I got somebody else. And so then I ended up walking in the room one day, and he was like, man, this Jacory, this the dude that I've been telling y'all about that I want to work. And they was like, no, this Spitty. And he like, oh shit, you know. Same person, you know what I mean? So, but nah, working with Future was a really dope experience. And you know, and early on, like watching him develop like into the superstar, the megastar, you know what I'm saying, that he is, you know, that he is now. It was really dope, and dope being able to, you know, be a part of that and be, you know, instrumental in that, you know, going on the road with cats, shooting content, you know, working with him on just how to, you know, like how to get in the camera and how to, you know, engage with the camera and with the fans and all of that, and like kind of what's, you know, needed today. So that was really dope. And then I also was able to connect a dope clothing capsule collection back then, which, you know, I mean, now he's doing stuff with Lanvin and like on like a whole nother level, but like just to be early on, you know, working with them like on developing like these different capsule collections and things like that, that was really dope to be able to, you know, put together and be able to design it and put together like the whole marketing push for it and all that. And it was in Zoomies and sold out, you know what I'm saying?
Super dope shit right there.
Yeah, for sure.
So go ahead and share the story of how working with Young Dolph ended up creating the first Off the Porch interview.
Yeah, so even the way that I even got to, you know, working with Young Dolph, it was, so when I was at Def Jam, you know, I was really close with Titty Boy, and worked with him really close, and worked with him close into the transition from Titty Boy into 2 Chainz. And so I met DJ Technique, you know, 2 Chainz introduced me to Tech, and we all started working together and building together as he was, you know, building up like his Codeine Cowboy mixtapes, and, you know what I'm saying, like all of those tapes that, you know, like I said, went into like that transition. So from that like was sort of my introduction to street execs and being connected with them. Then coming down here to Atlanta and working with Starlito and Don Tripp, they started coming down to the studio. They started coming down to the studio where I was living at Mad Studios. Shout out to Corey Moe. That was my introduction, like even to Atlanta. You know what I'm saying, and coming down here and like really being able to like stake claim and really start making a name for myself down here. So I met Dolph, you know, a couple of times, like with Tripp and Starlito. And so then from working with street execs and all of that, like it was just kind of automatic where, you know, it was like all family anyway. And so started working with them, connected with Daddy O. He was always super cool. And then all my family's from Memphis. So when I would go to Memphis, you know, for different holidays and stuff like that, like me and Dolph would connect. We would, you know, link up and build or listen to music or just vibe out. Or my Aunt Juanita like makes these amazing cookies, and so I remember like he actually like bought a few dozen off of her, you know what I'm saying, a couple of times. So anyway, we started working together like around like the time when he had like officially like around the time when he had Preach. And so we started working together, and I was taking him around like doing interviews, like going to Hot New Hip Hop and going to Vibe magazine and Double XL, and, you know, like taking him to all these different platforms, BET, you know, all of that. But he didn't really like doing interviews. Like he wasn't really open, you know, to doing interviews. And so I remember one day, Al from Street Execs, like Charlie, Dolph, Daddy, we were all together. And Al from Street Execs was like, man, Spitty, like you used to write for The Source and y'all got DGB, like y'all, you know what I'm saying? Like you a real journalist, why don't you start doing interviews? And Dolph was like, shit, I'll do an interview with you if you do interviews, but you know what I'm saying? I was like, well, shit, all right, let me think of something. And so then I remember I grabbed my Canon T2i, and I'm a fan of the Hot Boys, and on their Guerrilla Warfare album, all their skits was called Off the Porch. So this porch right here was actually the porch that was in the back of the house in Decatur, you know, that I lived in. So I took that camera, got Dolph positioned on the porch and everything, and we shot the first Off the Porch, you know what I'm saying? Shout out to Stack Moses, shout out to Duke, a Color Brown shot, you know what I'm saying? Everybody who, you know, helped out with like shooting those first couple of ones. But yeah, man, like it was truly birthed, you know, as a platform, you know, for, you know, to help young Dolph like get his interview skills up, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And then when you got this space here at Space 620, you decided, let's rebuild the porch.
Yeah, man. Like, cause we had Dolph, we had Bankroll Fresh, you know what I'm saying? We had like a couple of artists on the original porch, but then we came here and got the creative space, Space 620. And I remember, you know, us like trying to figure it out. Like, okay, like we were pulling up to artists and filming them at shows. We were using the rough warehouse space and, you know, trying to do like the whole rustic look and, you know, do that. And I remember one day taking an artist over to DJ Smalls, and I was talking to Smalls in between like them doing the interview, and I was like, man, I'm really trying to get, you know, our YouTube channel cracking. Like I'm really trying to get that going. And I just can't figure out like what I should do. And he was like, man, you should pick one look, pick one niche, and like just shoot that. Like just like shoot that for like a whole year. And don't stop, don't look at the numbers, like none of that. And I remember like coming over here and coming to you and being like, yo, Haze, like I think we need to rebuild the porch, man. Like let's rebuild this porch, man. You know.
No, I was all for it. I was like, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's what separates us from everyone else is that we got the porch.
Right,
you know
right.
What I'm saying?
I mean, because the porch, like the porch, it signifies like so much, you know, from growing up in the neighborhood, you know what I mean? Like the porch is where, you know, like if you had hair, like you was sitting up on the porch getting your hair braided, or, you know, like I said, like shit, I damn near couldn't go off the porch for certain years, you know what I mean? So I just had to watch everything from the porch, you know? The porch is where the grown folks be at sipping what they sipping on and gossiping and all that. You know, the porch is, I mean, so many stories have come from the porch, you know what I mean? Like you done told so many secrets, you know what I mean, on the porch, or, you know what I mean? So like, to me, the porch like really signifies like where you come from and, you know what I mean? And where you going, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and that's why we ask people like, what, like when'd you jump off the porch, you know what I mean? Cause like, when was that point? You know, like people always think that jumping off the porch like mean like some street, or mean some gangster, or it mean like when did you start robbing or stealing or anything like that. And that's not what it is. Like jumping off the porch is, when did you step from under like your parents' tutelage? Like when did you step out to become your own man or your own woman and actually experience life and see what's out here? Like that's what jumping off the porch is, you know what I'm saying? So I just want to make that clear to people, because I feel like people always think that like it's got to be associated with something negative, and it's not. Like it's about like, when did you find yourself for real? I think that's even more like a better way to kind of express it, is like, when did you find yourself?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And so after years of me nagging you to finally start doing some interviews, like literally, and what finally pushed you over the edge to actually get you to start doing these now?
Yo, for real, it was, I mean, for years, bro, like I've almost been like hiding from myself, if you want to say, because it's funny, like I've always been a person saying like, okay, I don't really want to be on camera. I'm not like that person trying to be, on camera. So then when we created Off the Porch, and even like with doing the first couple of interviews, like I remember like I didn't even want my voice in it. So like I didn't even, what I mean? Like I think we might have put the words up and then put, so, but it's like with it being like, okay, you don't have to be on camera. It's like, all right, that kind of like inched me a little closer to doing it. But no, seriously, like my mom's was like always telling me like, you got a voice for it, like you should start doing it, like this is something that I've always seen for you. And she would always tell me that. And I remember when you called me with the opportunity to go interview with Beehive, and that was sort of for me like that was sort of like one of my like, all right, like stop being scared, you know what I mean? Stop being, because like I've never wanted the attention. I've never wanted to be popular, or I've never wanted, the attention that comes with being on screen, being on camera, being in front of people, and all of that. But it was really, man, like me understanding too that like that I have a skill set and I have something that like I bring to the table that I want to, deliver and get out there and put out there. And yeah, man, I was like, man, Haze out here getting all the shine, man. Like, let me, I was like, man, let me get out here, you know what I'm saying, and get some shine with my boy, man. And it was really dope, like seeing you coming to your own with doing this. And I gotta say, bro, like I'm so proud of you, dog, for like what you've done to like build this platform. And always tell people like, man, Haze the backbone of this shit, you know what I'm saying? Like if it wasn't for you, like what I mean, like you're the glue that like holds all of us together. Like when I'm not focused at one point, or what I mean, if Dre not focused at one point, or if Zip, or Long Live Pooh, if Pooh wasn't focused at one, it was, what I mean, like you were always the one like kind of bringing all of us together like as one. So it's been dope seeing you, because I remember you not wanting to do interviews.
I tried to get everyone else to do them at first, and when everyone else passed on, I was like, all right, by default, here I am.
You know what I mean? But then like it's crazy because like you probably not even knowing like have like a real knack for this and like are really skilled, and like when I see that, it's like it's so dope, you know what I mean? But really, man, for me, like getting into it, man, is that like I want to like help to share these stories, you know what I mean? That need to be told by these artists, by these creatives, by these execs, all of these people. And understanding that my voice is important in this too. And understanding that, for what I've done in this, that, I should put my voice to it too. You know what I'm saying? So it's time to step out. It's time to, get out here. Even, like we have so many debates on hip hop, sports, things like that. I'm like, man, it's time like to bring that, to the people, like to our audience, you know what I mean? So yeah, man.
Yeah. I'm happy you finally stepped down and started doing these things.
Yeah,
help me out a little bit.
No, for real, man. Like, man, again, man, shout out to you, man. Yeah. Shout out to Zip. Shout out to Dre, man. Long Live Pooh, like for real, man. Cause like with us having a strong team and everybody having like their own skill set and their own passions and things like that, like I know that has, is what has helped us to like last the test of time, you know what I mean? Because we've lasted through the blog era, and now is, you know what I mean, then it was like the playlist era, and now it's the social media era, and now like the content era, you know what I mean? Like, so I mean, we've definitely lasted the test of time, you know what I'm saying, which a lot of people can't say, you know.
Not real shit, yeah. All right, Spitty, go ahead and give your shout-outs, man, before we wrap it up here.
Word.
I know this might be a long list.
Yo, man, long live moms, you know what I'm saying? Shout out my mom, Dukes. Shout out my brother Damien. Shout out my cousin Chell. Shout out my brother Frederick. Man, shout out the whole 22nd and Townsend. Shout out the whole Mill. Bobby, Dante, Tim, Terrence, man. Shout out everybody, man. Shout out everybody that got love for me. Shout out Tim Reed. I didn't mention him in the interview, but Tim was very instrumental in my career, challenged me early on, and I got a lot of love for him. Shout out to Tim Reed. And man, just shout out to the real ones, for real. And if you got a dream, if you got a goal, like go after it, don't stop. And you know what I mean? Like just you know, you can do it. Like defy the odds, you know what I mean? Like just don't stop, man. So, shout out to the real ones. Let's get it.
I don't fuck with these niggas cause they shady. These bitches, they just wanna have my baby. Born in the